So picture this. I'm sitting in my parents' living room and they're laying it all out. There was no yelling, no big drama. It was just this cold, quiet ultimatum that was about to blow up my entire life. My mom, she's reading from a printed schedule like she's in a boardroom, and my dad's just standing there by the fireplace, not saying a word. The tension in that room was just wow.
And that was it. That was the bottom line. No talking it out, no room for discussion. It was just this simple, brutal choice that, let's be real, wasn't a choice at all. They thought they had me completely cornered.
And this proposal, ugh, it was something else. My mom, sitting there, all prim and proper, had actually typed the whole thing up. I bet she spent an hour picking out the right font to make it look official. This wasn't a cry for help. This was a hostile takeover of my life.
I mean, my jaw just dropped reading it. I was supposed to pick up my nieces and nephew every single day after work, do homework with them, cook them dinner, and basically be their mom until my brother-in-law rolled in around 7 p.m. Oh, and give up 2 of my weekends every month. I have a crazy, demanding job as a financial analyst, right? I'm working till 6 most nights. Their answer to that? You can adjust. Just like that. My dad finally chimed in, and his voice just had this hard edge to it. He says, "We prefer the term helping family. But come on, let's just call a spade a spade. They were using my affordable rent to force me into being a free, full-time nanny. It was blackmail. End of story." And that's what really got to me. 6 years of busting my butt, dealing with impossible clients, endless reports, finally getting that promotion, and it meant nothing. My entire career, my sacrifices, my life, it was all just some minor inconvenience they expected me to adjust to make my sister's life easier. The dismissal was just absolute. Look, to really get how we ended up here, you have to understand the history. This whole ultimatum didn't just pop up out of nowhere. No, this was built on a lifetime of family dynamics that were set in stone years and years ago. There was this unwritten rule in our family, always. My sister Lauren, she wasn't a bad person or anything. She was just fragile. The one who always needed a little more help, more attention, more everything. And me? Well, I was the capable one. I was the one who was just expected to adapt, to swallow my own needs, and, keep the peace. And it started super young. I was 14, freaking out about a math final, and Lauren ditches our study session for a date. My mom's response? "Oh, you're good at math. You'll figure it out." And I did. I always did. But every time I figured it out on my own, it just reinforced the idea that I didn't need any help, which meant I got even less of it. That apartment they gave me when I was 24, I see it now. It wasn't a gift. It was just leverage for later. So when I walked out of that meeting telling them I needed to think, I already knew exactly what I was going to do. And it was not what they were expecting. Something inside me had finally snapped. Not loud, but quiet, like a thread that had just been pulled too tight for way too long. The moment I got back to my apartment, I just stood there. Their voices were still ringing in my head. I looked around at this little home I'd made for myself, and I realized none of it was truly mine. It was all just a tool they could use to control me. And that realization, it burned. So I walked over to my desk, and I pulled out the lease I'd signed years ago without even thinking about it. And right there, in black and white, was my escape hatch. My panic just dissolved and turned into this cold, clear anger. Turns out they couldn't just raise my rent on a whim. They couldn't raise it more than 10% a year. And they had to give me 90 days written notice. Every single threat they just made, it was a complete and total bluff. That anger made everything crystal clear. I opened my laptop and just started searching. I burned some vacation days, scheduled a bunch of tours, and by Wednesday, I found the perfect place. An apartment that felt like mine. No strings attached. By Thursday, I was approved. I spent the next 2 days packing in total silence, and on Saturday morning, the movers showed up. I just disappeared. So by the time my parents decided to drive over to check on me, I was already 20 minutes away, setting up my new life. They found an empty, spotless apartment with my keys slid neatly through the mail slot. And that's when my phone started blowing up. First, it was 10 calls, then 16, then 23 missed calls by Sunday. The voicemails just kept piling up, but I didn't listen to a single one. I didn't need to hear the panic in my mom's voice or my dad's fake authority. They were spiraling, and for the very first time in my life, their chaos was not my problem to fix. I blocked their numbers.
A few days later, a certified letter shows up at my office, full of vague legal threats. I took it straight to a lawyer a friend recommended. He read the thing, kind of sighed, and then said the 5 words that just cemented my freedom. They don't have a case. All their threats were just as empty as their promises had been.
So, 2 weeks later, they requested mediation. Now, I could have just said no, but I actually wanted to do it. I wanted everything out on the table, on the record, in a room where they couldn't twist the story later. It was time to draw a line in the sand. My father started the whole thing by calling it a misunderstanding. I almost laughed out loud, but I bit my tongue. And when their lawyer tried to smooth it over, saying they regret how that conversation came across, I just cut her off. I looked right at them and said, "Let's not rewrite it. You threatened me, you said the words." Then my mother tried, "We just wanted you home." And that's when I finally said the thing that had been sitting in my chest for weeks. This was never about family. It wasn't about home or helping. This was about control. It was always about their need to run my life because it made theirs easier. After about another 30 minutes of them trying to squirm out of it, they finally gave in. We drafted an agreement outlining the new rules. No more using money as a weapon. No more pressuring me about childcare. No more interfering in my life. We all signed it. It wasn't legally binding, but it was a record, a line drawn in ink. You know, walking out of that mediator's office, it didn't feel like a victory. Not really. It wasn't about revenge. It was reclamation. It was the feeling of taking back a part of myself I didn't even realize I had completely lost. And for the first time, my life felt completely 100% my own.
And the funny thing is, my aunt told me later that they ended up hiring a professional nanny for Lauren. It cost them about $1,500 a month, which is the actual market rate for the job they demanded I do for free. In the end, they had to take on the responsibility they tried so hard to force onto me.
I learned something really hard through all this. Family can be incredible, but when love is used as an excuse for control, it's not love anymore. It's just tradition being used as a weapon, and nobody should have to live under that kind of weight. The quiet in my new apartment, it feels earned now. I'm way more focused at work, and I'm actually building real, honest relationships with my sister and even my parents, slowly. It's not perfect, but it's not built on obligation anymore. It's built on my choices.
Look, if you've ever felt trapped by the very people who were supposed to have your back, just know this: choosing yourself is not selfish. It's survival. Sometimes the bravest thing you can possibly do is walk away. So I'll just leave you with this to think about. When is walking away the bravest choice you can make?